Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Tuesday. In case you were not sure what day it is, now you do know. Friday, we will, of course, have the Friday Road Show. I know we're some time away. I am mentioning it, however, because it is a holiday Independence Day, but we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. So if you were wondering if we would not be there, now you know that as well. Great start to the show. You know the day of the week, and that we will be at Scramblers. Thanks to Shirley's
You
Heating
really
and
are
Outdoor.
over there providing the information.
Cranking out the old info just like crazy. Speaking of cranking out information, this is so perfect. Last week, I think it was last week, we had that Ozark's first story about fireworks and how they are not impacted by any sort of tariff stuff. Ozark's first, they spoke to some local distributors of fireworks, and they're like, yeah, the prices are the same as last year, and tariffs aside, the fact it's the cycle in which fireworks are purchased, and so they're bought well ahead of time, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And so all of the purchasing of fireworks that are on sale this season, happened before any of the tariff talks, before Trump was even sworn in, really, and because it was the end of last year, and so whether or not there will be any sort of impact that's meaningful or at all next year round is yet to be seen. Also, so we talked about this on air and how it, of course, was contrary to the fear-mongering that occurred weeks before about the tariffs and fireworks, and oh my gosh, they're going to be so expensive, and then it's like, oh, I guess not. I kid you not, this is a story in the news leader today. Actually, yesterday, June 30th. Wait. Yeah,
Yes.
Yesterday. Tariffs could affect Missouri firework purchases this 4th of July. What to know? And the story is just straight up wrong. It's a Gannett. The story originated, which this is, I don't understand how all this works. It originated from one of the other Gannett papers, but in the Topeka Capital Journal. So why the Topeka Capital Journal is writing a story about tariffs affecting Missouri fireworks, I don't understand. Apparently they had two separate reporters on it. Makes sense of that. Don't get it, but whatever. What it really boils down to is the story's just straight up wrong. We'll touch on this story just a bit, but also there are a number of different stories. Wall Street Journal has one of them, and just all of these. This is such Groundhog Day. All of these predictions about the economy with Trump as president were wrong. They're wrong. There was a economist from Wall Street who ripped Trump. Oh, and all these policies and it's just going to be awful. There's a piece in the New York Post that he's now acknowledging that maybe Trump outsmarted all of us. Got audio of Art Laffer, of course, the Laffer curve breaking down why tariffs are not having any sort of impact. I mean, it's just, when I say it's Groundhog Day, it isn't simply a repeat of media being wrong in their predictions regarding Donald Trump, as much as the economy thing from when he got elected the first time around. I mean, it was the exact same thing in the lead up to the election and the days just after he first got sworn into the presidency. The media was touting out all these experts, and some, I remember specifically, some from the Bush administration. They would get economists, even from a Republican administration. Donald Trump has no idea what he's talking about. Donald Trump doesn't understand how these things work. Donald Trump is going to run this economy into the ground. And we had the greatest acceleration of increased economy that benefited the lower class the most, followed by the middle class, and the upper class benefited, but to a lesser degree than the middle and lower class did. And by all metrics, The minority groups disproportionately were impacted in a positive way by the economic benefit. I mean, just everything that they said would not happen happened. The opposite happened, in fact. And I mean, just here we go again. You think that these people would get exhausted of being wrong all the time about this stuff willingly? You know how much easier it is if you just really want to figure things out, what works, what doesn't work, and then as an expert, you just provide that information when you are tapped by the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or CNN or any of these news outlets. How much easier it is. You don't have to constantly figure out ways to, twist reality into explaining why it is that Donald Trump is wrong. I know there are moments in time when people screw up, and it's hard to tell the truth. We've all been in that position before where you got to tell the truth about something and it's just hard. And it may not even be because you did something wrong, but somebody that you care about, you have to deliver a hard truth to them, and that just, it isn't fun. It's not easy. But I find in life overall, if you just tell the truth, life really is much easier. It just is. I mean, frankly, it's one of the reasons that I find this job enjoyable and easy, because when you seek the truth, you don't have to constantly every day, oh man, I said this last week, but now things have changed, so I got to figure out how it is that I'm going to justify, rationalize. You just tell the truth. So much easier. So much easier. It just really, truly is. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 89.
last week we played a ozarksfirst.com story about how tariffs are not going to or are not having any impact on fireworks, and they interviewed, I know, at least one of it seemed like a number of different local firework distributors, sellers, I guess, better term, retailers, there we go, and how, yeah, the tariffs, any sort of tariff concern is not in play here. Even if there is going to be some sort of impact because of tariffs, it would not be until next year, because the purchasing of fireworks for sale occurs in the winter prior. That's according to the news report. And so they're like, this was before Trump was even sworn in. And so if there is going to be any sort of impact, it will be seen next year. But, of course, the whole tariff issue with China may be resolved by then anyhow, so there may be no impact. Despite that, the Springfield News Leader has a story, oddly out of the Topeka Capital Journal, about Missouri, titled, "Tariffs Could Affect Missouri Firework Purchases This 4th of July, What to Know?" Now, the short answer is nothing, because this is not true, at least according to other reports and local firework retailers. The news leader story reads, "Firework buffs in Missouri may get less bang for their buck this 4th of July due to the United States' ongoing tariff war with China, which provides 96.3% of the nation's fireworks." That's among conclusions of a study. Not off what's actually happening. This is such a perfect story. This is why you cannot believe these media outlets when they do a story based around a study. We don't need a study. We have right now. What is going on right now? You see, let me tell you how the media uses stories or studies. They use studies to validate what they already believe and what they want you to believe. So tariffs are bad. Donald Trump is bad. That's why tariffs are bad. They were fine when Obama implemented tariffs and when Joe Biden implemented tariffs, specifically on China. That was all cool. That was fantastic. When Trump does it, it's bad. And so we have to make sure you understand how bad it is. And, great American pastime. Average families out there trying to buy fireworks. We got to, our price is going to go up because of tariffs. Well, they're not. But I bet we can find a study that says that they will. And that's exactly what they did. So the fact that they're claiming, despite the fact it isn't happening, in Missouri we're going to pay much more in fireworks, that's among conclusions of a study put out last month by Value Penguin, a research and analysis-focused subsidiary of the online lending marketplace Lending Tree. The study also determined that Missouri ranked first in the nation in annual spending to import fireworks. The U.S. last year imposed $452 million in fireworks, or imported rather, $452 million in fireworks from China, according to the survey. Quote, "That's $542 million value, would equate $1.1 billion under a 145% tariff on Chinese exports to the United States," the report claimed. That tariff took effect in early April. However, the report noted that the U.S. and China agreed to temporarily roll back tariffs May 12, lowering the figure to 30% for the 90 days that the rollback remains in effect, which extends into August. But again, that doesn't affect the fireworks that are being sold today. Under a 30% tariff, $452 million in value would equate $587.7 million, it claimed. The tariffs, they write, should have less effect on larger firework companies that buy fireworks from China throughout the year, according to Jason Murrieta, retail sales director for Pittsburgh, Kansas-based Jake's Fireworks. The company has been ordering fireworks a year in advance. So now they kind of start to get into the truth here. He said, "We anticipated there could be something down the road tariff-wise, so we tried to get a lot of stuff in early. The tariffs will probably hurt smaller firework businesses, they claim, more than it does larger ones. Firework consumers in general this year will likely see maybe a little bit of an increase in the amounts they pay, but nothing more than the rising costs they've been paying for various other products. This coming 4th of July may also be characterized by a bit of a shortage of available fireworks, though the shortage won't be as serious as the one consumers expected during the COVID pandemic." He said he expected firework consumers to see more ramifications from tariffs on the 4th in 2026. when increased demand is expected because the holiday will fall on a Saturday and Americans will be celebrating their nation's 250th anniversary. So here, there's an acknowledgement that while there may be some sort of increase next year, but it'll be a supply issue, because there's going to be more people buying fireworks because it's going to be on the weekend, and as he noted, 250th anniversary. So there's going to be a big push, big celebration. The Value Penguin study found that Missourians come in first regarding annual spending per person to import fireworks, and then it goes over the numbers again, and just talks about the different states and who does and does not allow fireworks and the number of imported fireworks per dollar and so forth. And so here you have, and we've seen, again, two different types of stories regarding this, both local. One, Ozarks First, and they looked at actual prices that are actually happening and talked to people here in this market that are actually currently selling fireworks, and found that, the tariffs aren't having any sort of impact here. This headline from the news leader, tariffs could affect Missouri fireworks purchases this 4th of July. And even when you get into the story, if you're paying close enough attention, you see that it essentially says, well, not really this year, but it might next year. And it may not actually even be the tariffs that necessarily have the impact, but more of the fact that it's going to be on a Saturday. So probably more people will be buying fireworks, which then you have the supply and demand situation going on. Springfield news leader. At no point do these people get embarrassed? Apparently not. I should note that there may very well be, in certain instances, some situations where potentially, let's say you have a fireworks stand that is wanting to plan well in advance. And so they're going to sell fireworks at an increased cost in anticipation that next year, when they do their purchasing, there will be some sort of massive tariffs. I don't think it'll be that prevalent if that's the case, because if there are others that aren't doing that, then they're going to undercut them. And I think people do shop around a bit when it comes to buying fireworks. But the point is, this is what has. I mean, I guess it's the upside of having multiple news outlets, but when you can have two stories, both in a local market, one is how it's all about the fact that the tariffs are not going to impact fireworks sales, but then another one, which I should note, again, is written by people that aren't even in this market, is out of Topeka, Kansas, the news leader story, about how telling us, oh, no, you will be impacted by the tariffs. And these are two completely different realities. The Wall Street Journal has a piece from Tariff Pain to Record Highs, a wild quarter on Wall Street. The historic and tumultuous quarter ended with U.S. stocks at records, not lows, by the way. The Great Depression. Let's not forget, there were actual claims that we were going to have another Great Depression because of the tariff wars in particular. But instead, the quarter ended with U.S. stocks at records, and many investors betting that the ride isn't over yet. In other words, more winning. The April swoon that carried the S&P 500 to the brink of a bear market has been erased, and then some. The broad index has now added more than 9% since President Trump announced sweeping tariffs that sparked havoc in markets. Added 9%. Now investors have more reasons to feel upbeat. Both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite Index hits fresh all-time highs. Robust corporate earnings and solid economic data suggest that growth remained resilient. Inflation is trending near the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Banks that slashed their year-end targets for the S&P 500, such as J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs, are raising them again. Stocks gained on Monday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average adding about 0.6% or around 276 points after the U.S. resumed talks with the Canadians, which rescinded a digital service tax that had led Trump to pause negotiations on Friday. The S&P 500 notched its best quarterly performance since 2023, and the NASDAQ saw its biggest quarterly jump since 2020. Young Yu Ma, chief investment strategist at PNC Asset Management, said markets can take some comfort in that we've, in a sense, weathered some of the storm. The worst is probably behind us. And what was the worst? You think about just frankly how hilarious that is. The worst is behind us. What was the worst? Like 4 or 5 days? Maybe a couple of weeks. I mean, there were a few days where it was panic, and I believe much of it was speculation, a self-fulfilled prophecy that because of fears that the market was going to do poorly, the market began to do poorly. But then, as the dust began to settle and people began looking around, going, "Hey, wait a minute here. Actually, everything seems to be okay." The worst under Donald Trump so far has been better than the best under Joe Biden. I mean, this is just reality stuff. It takes a lot to really, I guess, amaze me any longer. But it does amaze me that, everyone was panicking except one guy. Well, there were a lot of people who had faith in Trump, and of course people in his circle and cabinet, but they are going to obviously be out there promoting what it is, as they should, they work for the executive branch, so they should be out there as spokespersons for the presidency. But outside of that war, the Trump, where he's like the only guy that was right again. It's just an amazing thing. You read through this Wall Street Journal, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, all of these institutions that are populated with these brilliant people are all readjusting based off of Trump was right. The optimism has fueled fresh gains, writes the Wall Street Journal, for some recent stalwarts. The AI trade has rebounded from a rocky start to the year when the emergence of Chinese upstart DeepSeek's artificial intelligence model erased billions of dollars of value from NVIDIA and other tech giants. NVIDIA shares have climbed 18% this year. Meta Platforms gaining 26%. Microsoft has added 18%. Shares of data analytics firm Palantir Technologies and chipmaker Broadcom are up 80% and 19% respectively. The price of Bitcoin has climbed back up above $100,000, with Trump reaffirming his promise to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the planet, and Congress seeking to advance legislation that could integrate crypto into the mainstream financial system. Coinbase led the recovery from the April lows, rising around 130%. And then, of course, the Wall Street Journal piece then gives a nod to, but some critics warn, you just got to wait. Trump will eventually be wrong. And I'm not claiming that Trump is right on absolutely everything and that every prediction Trump makes is going to come out absolutely 100%, batting 1,000. But for Pete's sakes, on these economic issues, how often are we as a society going to accept the people who are wrong over and over and over again and start looking at the guy who proves to have a pretty good batting average? Especially considering it's beneficial to us as average Americans. The emotionally self-destructive behavior of people who would rather be miserable, rather be emotionally miserable than admit maybe Donald Trump knows what he's doing. They choose to be miserable instead of hopeful. They choose to deny reality as opposed to accepting it and recognizing, hey, this is good. That is not emotionally healthy. There's something wrong with you if that is your approach. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but you're every single day choosing to deliberately be unhappy about things that are actually better. Your misery is not because of Donald Trump. It's because of you. You're doing that to yourself. Get a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 89.
Wall Street Journal had a piece it's not framed as Trump was right about everything, but that's essentially what it's laying out. Stuff at record high. All of these financial institutions that had really scaled back their forecast because of Trump and tariffs are now, increasing them again. The New York Post has a story. Wall Street economist who ripped Trump admits Prez may have outsmarted all of us on tariffs. Prominent Wall Street economist who had slammed Trump's tariffs earlier this year now says the president may have outsmarted all of us with his controversial trade policies. Torsten Sloke, chief economist at investment giant, this is a chief economist at investment giant Apollo Global Management, said that while the uncertainty of surrounding trade policies has already started to weigh on the economy, Trump could lower tariffs on most of the U.S. trading partners while using the levies to boost Federal Reserve. Sloke suggested in a recent Post analysis that the administration's approach may be more strategic than previously thought. Now, that translates to Trump may have actually known what he was doing. This is just so perfect. What was one word? Well, a couple of different words that were constantly used during the Liberation Day. What was it? Whatever day, April 2nd. I think it was the day after April 1st because they didn't want people to think it was an April Fool's joke. And so with all of these tariffs, and you kept hearing the word like chaos. You kept hearing the word confusion. And the media portraying all of this as Donald Trump just recklessly carrying out what doesn't even resemble an economic policy, but just some crazed madman who has no idea what he's doing. And this was coming from, the brilliant minds, the chief economist. And here you have chief economist at investment giant Apollo Global Management saying that, well, maybe Trump was more strategic than previously thought. Oh, really? They act as if Donald Trump is someone like, Ocasio-Cortez or Mumani or whatever his name is, the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York, as if, they've never really actually done anything. They act like Donald Trump is just brand new on the scene. He has no experience whatsoever in anything economic. He's just some guy that was on television and one day becomes president, and then he starts making these economic decisions, having no idea what he's doing. His entire life has been about the economy. That's the thing so many of these academics in particular, they don't get. Donald Trump has lived it. He has lived it. His entire life, he has lived this stuff. He doesn't operate in theory. He may not have the credentials of the studied. These individuals that are invited to speak at these economic forums and theorizing about how to craft a government-run economy in which equity is the ultimate utopia and so forth. No, he just actually he has lived it his entire life. You can, on one hand, I think it must be frustrating for him, but on the other hand, I suppose he probably ignores it, and it's somewhat irrelevant to him. But I think most of us can imagine if there is something that you have been involved in your entire life, and then somebody comes along who has studied that thing, and they try to tell you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, let's say that you are fishing. You grew up fishing. Love fishing. It's in your blood. Every single day your life is about fishing. And then some expert comes along who's never actually fished, but took courses in fishing. He's got a degree in fishery or whatever it would be called. And begins to tell you and everyone else you don't know what you're talking about. You think, what? You've never even been fishing before. Donald Trump has been elbow deep, knee deep, waist deep in the economy and global, not just New York, but as we all know, he has real estate deals all over the world, business deals all over the world. This guy on a micro level knows how this stuff works, and he also knows it on a macro level because his micro level experience is all over the entire globe in different capacities, different instances, which then makes it macro. And just for this one guy, now there are obviously a lot of other people out there that have similar lived experiences, and so they too constantly defy the so-called experts, but we don't know about them because those individuals aren't president of the United States. They're not someone, that the world knows at large. But it's just a pretty remarkable thing to watch this guy just constantly be right about this stuff. And what is equally remarkable but sad is to just collectively to observe the refusal to acknowledge it. I mean, how stubborn, how dumb, frankly. Do people have to be like, no, okay, you do you. Art Laffer discussing the lack of economic devastation and massive inflation that we were told was going to be coming our way by everyone under the sun. He was on Fox Business Monday discussing the very issue.
Step one, tariffs on imports do raise the price of imports. But do remember that the U.S. exports to earn the wherewithal to buy imports from other countries. So if you have a tax on imports, it's the exact same thing as a tax on export. That's called Lerner's symmetry theorem. Exactly the same. And therefore, what happens is all of our exportable goods and services, their prices will fall. So the increase in prices of imports is matched 100% by the fall in the prices of exports, and the two net out to be zero. Now, that's the theoretical argument there. If you look at the Smoot-Hawley tariff, when that came in, prices dropped afterwards. If you look at it with Nixon's, the rate of inflation declined substantially with Nixon's 10% import surcharge. That it also did not get, it just doesn't affect trade. The Kennedy round did not affect prices, and also neither did the NAFTA affect prices. Wow. These people who focus on prices just don't understand straight up from Sikkim. They aren't good economists, and they also aren't good empiricists. But other than that, they're really nice people. But you explained that very clearly. He doesn't know anything about Fed.
Now, Art Laffer has two approaches here. I think this is interesting. Number one, he's explaining the technical aspects of this, right? And frankly, what he said, for a lot of you, for a lot of us, we're lost three words in. We're like, oh, wait a minute, what's he talking about? Because he's speaking language that, unless you take in economics, you may not necessarily be familiar with. That's okay. So do you know what he also does? Is he just gives examples of other times in our economic history in which tariffs came into play and noted we did not see this inflation issue come into play. We didn't see this significant, noticeable, across-the-board increase of prices. This is I like this approach because it has something for everybody. For people who understand the technical aspect of economics, he's breaking down and explaining why it is that we are not seeing what everyone, all the experts told us we were going to see. But then it's like, you know what? For those of you that is just you glossed over, here's what you can understand, and this really speaks to me. When Nixon did it, when Kennedy did it, when all these other instances throughout our history, we had these different variations of this particular approach. What we did not see is what they said was going to come. Now, I'm a big believer in looking at history. And people love to virtue signal with the quote about, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. Yet even recent history, so often they refuse to acknowledge. Refuse it. You just look at any economic policy. You've got these people on the left. Raise taxes on the rich. We need to spend more. We need to do this. These are things. Okay, let's look at history. How has that worked? Not very well. Oh, we've got long wait times in the emergency room, and the cost of medicine keeps going up. We need government to get involved. Okay, have we ever done that? Let's see how that worked. Not very well. So how about we don't do that again? How about we look at the things that actually work? Instead of, let's see, which political party said it, and it was Donald Trump. Okay, I'm going to be against it now. What a dumb-headed way to form opinions on things. Not based off fact, not based off has this worked when we've tried it before? What were the results when we tried it before? Not based off of, hey, has this person told us in the past that this was the proper way? Let's say, for example, Obamacare. Did these people tell us? Did this particular person who is now telling me they have the answer to all of our healthcare woes, did they tell me that same thing when they said Obamacare was going to make healthcare cheaper and it easier to get in to see your doctor and everything was going to be better? Oh, they did? Maybe I shouldn't listen to them. Especially, now it's one thing if they're like, hey, I was wrong and I figured out why. But if they still claim, oh no, I was correct in that assessment, probably shouldn't listen to those people. What percentage do you think of the American population bases their assessment off these political discussions and the what we believe is the right approach, the wrong approach, based off of just results and whether it's been done before and if it worked, if it didn't work, versus, let's see, do I like that person? Oh, okay. I don't. So that means whatever they say, I'm going to not believe. That is the opposite of thinking for yourself. And arguably, a significant part of the reason we have so many of the problems that we have. Let's check in on that traffic. Here is an exchange on Fox News, and the beginning of it, you're going to hear the tail end of just a tick off of all of the ways that Americans are economically benefiting under the Trump policies, which, again, you think that that's a good thing, right? Things are getting better. This is good. And then it goes to a Democrat strategist by the name of Theron Bond. So, again, the first part you'll hear I'm assuming it's a Republican or somebody conservative leaning, and then into the Democrat strategist on Trump policies.
Egg prices are down and gas prices are at a 4-year low. So I think something's working. And 100%, this was part of the landmark domestic policies that President Trump wanted. He wanted to make sure that the permanent tax cuts to strengthen Medicaid and reform it so that it actually helps those it was designed to help in the first place. And, frankly, President Trump's having a great week, and I think we're going to continue to do that when the Senate and the House pass this on July 4th, send it to his desk, and we'll have a big, beautiful law.
When I bought eggs a couple of weeks ago, they were still $5. Maybe that's down from $7 or $8, but just a few years ago, I was only paying $2 or $3. And if people are losing their jobs, if grocery prices have gone down just a hair, they're still not back to what they were prior to President Trump being in office, and that's exactly what he campaigned on. And the more that Trump wins in office, the more the American people at large lose, and that's just the truth.
He's been in office for 5 months.
But he said he would do things on day one, and he actually knows where the restroom is because he's been there before, and nothing he did first term and nothing he did second term is considerate of the American people at large that don't look like him and his MAGA followers.
We'll turn really quickly.
They can't help, because the facts aren't on their side, to get to the name calling. He only cares about people that look like him and his cult following. Well, what a solid argument. It's very difficult to counter brilliant analysis like that, isn't it? I'm amazed at some of the people that the Democrats put out there to be spokespersons. I mean, if anything, even if they believe it, to not realize that Americans have rejected that sort of thing. Like, that's not speaking to us. The name calling isn't speaking to us. But I do love the bulk of her argument essentially is, well, things may be getting better, but he hasn't fully fixed what Biden did. That's what she's saying. Well, I mean, sure, maybe egg prices are down some, but they're not fully down to what they were before Biden screwed them up. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe he's brought grocery prices down a little bit. His policies have resulted in that, but they're still not as good as they were once upon a time. Well, yeah. It's going to take a while. There was a lot of 4 years of a screw job on the American people. Takes a little bit of time to fix. But here you've got a Democrat strategist on as a spokesperson to try and articulate the left's perspective on it. And her argument boils down to, in 5 months, he's a failure because he hasn't completely fixed the problems that Biden created. Only partially done so. Hey, don't forget, as things continue to get better and consumer sentiment is positive, I want a great homeloan.com. You've been holding off, perhaps, like, do I want to buy a new home? Do I want to refinance? Do I want to reverse mortgage? Or a lot of things that just with, an economy and people in charge that are doing so poorly, you don't know what's going to come the next day. It feels safe just to lock down, but all that is lifting. It's morning again in America, and it may be the right time for you to at least check out the landscape. And it all begins at iwantagreathomeloan.com. Simple process. Find out what it is that your landscape looks like. And to answer any of your questions, the characters and their team, all of it starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Hey, everybody. If you haven't visited hunterhardscapes.com, if you have a yard, any land at all, I suppose if you live in an apartment complex, situation may be different, though you can always recommend them. I know that they have done work at some of the higher-end living facilities through the area. But hunterhardscapes.com is the site for Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. And you can get an idea of what your outdoor living area can look like. And it may not be right now an outdoor living area. You may not have that. You may just have outdoors. Got the backyard, got the front yard, and then you have your living area, which is inside. Bedroom, den, living room, kitchen, bonus room. But that space you paid for outside. And if you like to spend any time outside whatsoever, then why not convert it to an outdoor living space? Be it just a small little patio for your Blackstone and your Traeger, or an area that you want to entertain with music features and lighting for evening affairs. Whatever it is that you want, and you may not even necessarily know the design, you just know how you want to use it. You know what the environment wants to be, you know what it is that you want to have people over, maybe have an entire outdoor kitchen area. These guys are the best, and they can design. That's what they do. But whatever it is you need. And then, of course, they do the premier work in the area with premier products as well. This isn't stuff that you buy at the big box store. And it's not something, just so you know now, that they're going to be able to, do in a couple of weeks. Probably fall at this point if you get started now. Because if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And that's what you get with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Again, the site, hunterhardscapes.com, you can get a ballpark figure of cost based off your project and also see before and after projects. KSGF.com, Nick's endorsements. You can find the information there as well. There is just a bit of information that has come out, but it's basically just based off of people that knew the individual that shot the two firefighters, by all indicators, luring them in to shoot them by starting a little brush fire. Actually, 3 were shot, 2 were killed. Dale Rowley is the grandfather's name. Rowley, Wes, I think, Wes Rowley is the individual that's identified. And there have been a couple of different interviews. His grandfather has spoken, and essentially, like oftentimes with family, this is kind of a surprise. He wasn't really that much of a loner. The grandfather also said, though, he hasn't talked to him in a month or so, claiming that, or he said that his grandson had lost his cell phone, so he hasn't really talked to him since then. He did also say he believed that he wanted to be a firefighter, and he speculated that maybe he got rejected or something. That is a quote. He's, of course, that may not be the case, but you can imagine, grandfather just trying to grapple with this, and if this really is something that was a surprise, trying to figure out why it is, particularly given that he said, hey, listen, he wanted to be a firefighter, so this, doesn't seem to jive why he would target firefighters. And I think a thinking person, at least one of the possibilities that could make sense is, well, maybe he tried out or applied and he did not qualify, or he felt like he was dismissed, or maybe he went through some sort of testing and did not pass it, and out of anger decided that he was going to take it out on either specifically targeting maybe the fire department that had rejected him, or just firefighters in general. He did apparently, according to another report, have a roommate that said he had, in the last month, kind of had his personality had clearly changed. He shaved his head. He was kind of living in his car. So there was, by all appearance, some in this timeline, a apparent dramatic change in his personality. Now, whether that was something just that happened organically, or was this something that occurred because he felt like he was slighted, it's very early, of course, to say, but increasingly, it seems to me, particularly with well, younger people, but that age level rises as time goes on. We see occurrences similar to this that are the result of the individual not able to take rejection. And again, we don't know that that is the case here. But I think a reasonable person could, at this early stage, as his grandfather did, speculate. He wanted to be a firefighter. He shot firefighters. And so maybe he was rejected by firefighters. And that's what made him snap. I think this is a, for all the talk about epidemics of, this and that and depression and so on, and trying to really nail down what it is that has in the last several generations caused an increase of young people lashing out in this way. I think a lot of it just goes right back down to it's an emotional infancy. We have created this. Now, like I said, we don't know about this sort of instance in particular, but it's looking potentially like instances that we have seen before, in which it is a person who is angry at society, feels rejected by this, that, things aren't going their way. And I just believe that overwhelmingly, culturally, we have created this. We have created this by not allowing young people to have conflict. We have tried to protect them at all costs, make sure that they don't get triggered. And instead of what a lot of us dealt with growing up, and I happen to be of one of those generations where you went out and, especially during the summertime, you went out and played. And it was from the time you woke up and you went out, and then when the street lights came on, which during the summertime, of course, is late, you came in and you lived like 8 lifetimes in a day sometimes. One neighborhood in particular I lived in, it was a roving gang of us. There were like 12 of us. And you'd have these little factions. And, we were boys. We were, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And, sometimes you can have in one day a fist fight, and by the end of the day, you're best friends again. And that is something growing up that wires your brain in a manner that allows you to learn how to deal with rejection. It's just like physical exercise. And if you're somebody that never, ever does any sort of physical exercise or never does any sort of physical training, well, you're not going to be equipped to then take on some sort of physical task. If I'm somebody that sits on the couch all the time, I'm tasked with climbing Mount Everest, not going to happen, is it? I'd probably actually literally die because I'm not equipped to do that sort of thing. I haven't been trained to do that sort of thing. My body doesn't know how to and is not equipped to handle that sort of thing. And we have just taken so many young people, all in the name of compassion, and denied them those experiences. It would, to draw another analogy, be similar to raising a child in an environment in which he or she came into contact with absolutely no germs whatsoever, and so then grew up with no immune system, or at least an immune system that had never been trained in order to operate in the way an immune system is supposed to, and then you're going to be weaker for it. You cannot take people, human beings, from those informative years, those years in which what they become, what we become, is total, complete clay and formation yet to be done, and deny them conflict. Deny them emotional conflict, deny them intellectual conflict, and then expect them to, as an adult, be able to function normally. It is not even, it's just inconceivable that we would expect that. This is part of the reason that, in particular, people on the left, you see that they just break down, they scream, they yell, they go crazy, they lash out. If they are ever confronted just with intellectual questions on college campuses, they get angry, they don't know how to answer. They emotionally are overcome, and that is because they've never... It's almost at that point without, I believe, real strict and concerted effort, you can't get those people, quote, fixed. Now, again, with concerted effort, yes, I think you can, but it's not going to naturally happen. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And, there's just all this, well, it's bullying because of bullying. Well, bullying did this, bullying did that. Bullying has always been around. Bullying, kids being mean to kids, name calling, forming little groups, picking on the smaller kid, picking on the kid with some sort of, physical or intellectual, lack of capabilities. Well, it's not right, it's wrong, but that has always existed. That is not a new concept. But what is new, at least in our culture and our society over the past several generations, is denying young people the ability to figure out how to deal with that conflict, to deal with the hurt feelings, to deal with people making fun of you, to deal with being told, hey, this is something that you're not so great at. Maybe you can find something else that you're great at. And instead, they're told they're wonderful, they're special. Everyone needs to love you. Everyone needs to accept you for who you are. And then the minute that they come across someone who says, actually, no, that's not true, they can't handle it and they snap. We've got traffic coming up in a moment. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking at to Thursday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 89.
How would you like Godfather's Pizza at your workplace, be it an office or otherwise? You can register to win pizza delivered to your place of work by from Godfather's Pizza, one of the best that you're going to find in the area. Just go to ksgf.com and get yourself registered for that. Supreme Court to hear Republican challenge that could shake up U.S. elections. The Supreme Court yesterday agreed to take up a Republican-led challenge to U.S. campaign finance restrictions that limit the amount of money that political parties can spend on behalf of certain candidates. The case, National Republican Senatorial Committee versus Federal Elections Commission, was originally appealed to the court by the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the National Republican Congressional Committee, and on behalf of two Senate Republican candidates running for election at the time, among them now Vice President J.D. Vance. It centers on whether federal limits on campaign spending by political parties runs afoul of free speech protection under the First Amendment of the Constitution. In asking the Supreme Court to revive the case, petitioners said the spending limits severely restrict political party committees from doing what the First Amendment entitles them to do, fully associate with and advocate for their own candidates for federal office. A decision from the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative majority could have major implications on campaign spending in the U.S., further eroding the FEC Act of 1971, a law Congress passed more than 50 years ago with the aim of restricting the amount of money that can be spent on behalf of candidates. Now, I kind of enjoyed this particular subject matter because, well, I don't know if this is why, but I tend to fall pretty out of line with most people on it. In that, I do not believe in any restrictions whatsoever by the government. One, because I just don't believe that the government has the right to tell me how much money I am allowed to donate to a person I want in office, particularly given that the people who voted for these particular sorts of restrictions were other politicians telling me how much I'm allowed. Particularly, you think about if it's somebody that I want as a challenger. I think I don't like the person that's in there now. I want this other person in there, but the people who are in there now, they're like, well, we're only going to allow you to give them so much because that's what happened. But secondly, because it doesn't make any difference other than it helps incumbents. That's the only real-life effect it has. It helps incumbents, and it makes it more difficult for average people to successfully run for office. This is the contradiction, and it's in this very story, okay? So this is Fox News. It continues on. The case comes as federal election spending has reached record highs. Now, the whole story and the challenge here is based off the fact that we currently have restrictions put in place. For what purpose? Well, it's to just really get under control the amount of money in politics. Yet every single election cycle, there's more than there was the election cycle before. Sort of like Obamacare. It's going to make health care even less expensive. Well, the opposite happened. We have to campaign finance reform in order to keep money out of elections. But every election, it's more and more and more. And do you know why? And this is how you know. It isn't about taking money out of politics. The restriction isn't on how much politicians can raise. It's on how much you can give. Now, I don't support either of those. I do not support government saying, okay, you can only raise this much money. But if it really was about the amount of money in politics, and that there's too much money in politics, and that makes it corrupt, then you would put a limit on how much the people running for office, including incumbents, could raise. But they don't do that, do they? No, they put the restriction on you and how much you can give. Now, why would they do that? Well, I can tell you exactly why. First off, the people who set up these rules were people that were already in office. Now, just that alone. Do we really think collectively, knowing what we know about elected officials, I'll say even a majority, 51%. And we know that most of them want to stay in that position for a very, very long time. That's why they run for re-election over and over again. Do we really, truly, genuinely believe collectively of all the people that we are going to allow, or that we have allowed, to set up rules to make things more fair? It's the people who would lose their jobs potentially by making things more fair? Or do we think that collectively, when it comes down to getting a majority of vote, they might vote to self-preserve, to make it easier to win re-election? I mean, come on, let's be honest about this. And culturally, as a society, those of us who our society as a whole generally does not have the best opinion about members of Congress. Now, people might like their own member of Congress, but when it comes to Congress as a whole, people don't have a favorable view. Yet, somehow we feel secure in letting them set the rules for people who are going to run against them. Now, they may say, well, the rules apply to us as well. Well, but they already have fundraising lists. They already have the ability, with your tax dollars, to send you little mailers every week letting you know what a wonderful job they've done as your member of Congress. And by the way, I'm not opposed to that. I think communication with constituents is important. If you are an incumbent, you have the power to get on television. You have the power to get on radio. And by the way, if you are doing something that is non-campaign related, the equal time component doesn't come into play. You can send out, again, on the taxpayer dime, all of these different, letters like, oh, just so you know, here's how I voted in order to do this for you, and this is how wonderful I am. A challenger does not have any of that. It is also very, very difficult for a person to take on an incumbent just because of name recognition alone. And if you're looking at a primary in particular, the obstacles of being up against the political party, the challenges of that, you have the entire deck is stacked against you. And the fact of the matter is, people don't like to donate money if they feel you don't have a chance. And the lower amount so if I'm running as a challenger and you tell me, well, you can only collect this much per person, that's all the more people that I have to try to get money out of. So instead of convincing one person that might have a big, fat bank account to write me a check so I can go out there and start spreading my message, I have to convince thousands and thousands of people to do it. Everything about limiting dollar amounts that people or organizations or whatever can give to people running for office, every limitation, every cap, every ceiling is a benefit to the incumbent because they already have a built-in advantage. And so when you have incumbents with a built-in advantage, and then they vote in these laws or defend these laws that say, oh, you can only raise this much per person, who on earth do we think that helps? It is rigging the game. And the gag of it all is those elected officials manage to pretty successfully convince us that they're doing it so that they'll be less corrupt. They tell us, oh, no, we have to have these laws, and so that way we're not corrupt. And we buy it. Well, we just thought, yeah, I mean, it's good. We should have those guys. That takes the corruption out of it. Oh, I didn't realize everything was pure as the driven snow. There should be absolutely no limit whatsoever on what I as an individual, or if I get together collectively with other people and form an organization, a political action committee or whatever, there should be no government restriction, particularly put in place by politicians in order to protect themselves. There's no limitation on what I should be able to do with my own money in order to support somebody who wants to run for office. I don't believe it is constitutional. And as equally important, it makes things less fair. So for those who think that somehow this makes the system better or more honest or more ethical, the fact of the matter is it does not. And guess what? The really corrupt ones, they take money under the table anyhow. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, I got weather coming up in just about 60 seconds after the latest traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 89.
Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I do not know what's going on at CU, but my home and my office are still without power. My home, I understand, but my office near Battlefield and National has never been without power longer than a day in 26 years, and we are coming up on 38 hours. You know, it does seem as if, to me anyhow, and I think to some of you as well, that just increasingly these power outages last longer and longer. There was the ice storm, and that was, I think, for most people, clearly understandable. That was just a, quote, historic event. And then there were the storms that came through a couple of months ago, and it was referenced that it's worse than the ice storm. And then we have people going days again without it, and it just seems increasingly as if even, and I know things happen, but to have people go days without power when there weren't even tornadoes, I don't know. At some point, you do start to think, is this a pattern? Is this happening more and more? Is there some sort of infrastructure problem that needs to be addressed? And so, I don't know. This may just be a cluster of really weird events that have caused these unusual long-term outages. But if time goes on and this starts to become more and more normal, I think that people are going to be like, what is going on here? Have you lost power out where you are in any of this stuff?
No. No, we had a listener message us like first thing this morning on YouTube Live, and they said they're also still out of power. Sure. It's got to be brutal.
Yeah. Well, especially if you are out in the country and you're not connected to city water, and so you're relying on electricity to pump water into your home, which means like toilets, and for example, that can, that can definitely be a big hassle. And I guess, of course, some people would argue, well, it's a reason you get a generator, but they're not always, the sort of thing everyone can afford. But point being is, I do think that if this is a frequency in which people can expect to see not just power going out, but these days going on where they're still without power, I do think people are going to begin to say, hey, what is going on here? What is different about now versus before this? And don't give me that climate change stuff. It's climate change. Okay. There's a story in Fox News that is centered around U.S. women's soccer legend Abby Wambach admitting in a recent podcast interview that President Donald Trump and his administration are geniuses in at least one thing. Now, immediately seeing that headline, I'm like, okay, what is the one thing? It's going to be one of these backhanded insults, I imagine. Wambach, along with author Glennon Doyle, opened up about what she called a complicated relationship with the U.S. and lamented that Trump and his officials were able to get their voters to rally and elect him as president once again in 2024. She spoke to MSNBC Nicole Wallace on her Best People podcast, so you know immediately what direction that's going to go. She explained, quote, this being Wambach, I think about it from a team perspective because I have so much experience being in a community of a team and being a person who represented this country. And I consider myself very patriotic in many ways, and yet my relationship with my country is very complicated because of all the things that go on inside our administration, the things that we are seeing. But I do believe that one of the things that Trump and the administration are geniuses at is getting people to believe that they are part of this community. This community piece allows people to not pay attention to every little thing. They're stroking them in a way that keeps them believing that they are part of something that is good, even if there's some consequences that are happening in order to get to this. Like it is like the ends justify the means in some sort of way. However, she believes some Trump supporters are having second thoughts, which polling indicates that is not the case, but nonetheless, quote, I think what you're seeing some folks going, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this at all. And that is laughable to me because he wasn't hiding his playbook. They just didn't believe. I think part of them probably felt like, oh, the playbook is just like that. It's never going to happen, right? Like it is too far down. This is never going to happen. Let's just get him in office. He is a good businessman. I also think there is probably a sector of people that are like, yeah, we want all of this stuff to happen. She went on to say there is a smaller version, but I do think some of the folks that voted for him are probably questioning their vote and also embarrassed to go back on it. It is once you get entrenched in that community, it's like if you get out, where do you go? It's almost like there's no place for folks who actually want to jump ship to land because they can't see themselves in all of our world. Now, I find this to be telling and somewhat consistent with the left in their refusal to get what's going on. And I say their refusal because it's really not that complicated. Now, what the left wants to believe that there was, that Trump is some sort of brilliant genius that tricked people into believing that, okay, you're on this team, and so that's all you have to know, and that's all that people, needed to know, and that's why they voted for him. The reason that Trump won is not any sort of real secret if you just actually listen to Trump supporters. See, this is what they refuse to do. And the reason that they won't listen to Trump supporters is because they don't like what Trump supporters have to say. Because the reason people support Trump shatters this fake reality that they have created. They created this world in which everything was wonderful, and Trump is racist, and everybody knows it. And so whenever you have this spike in, or an increase in minorities voting for Donald Trump, that shatters their worldview that Donald Trump is a racist. So they have to rationalize, well, those people were just kind of tricked into it. And I'm sure that they regret it. Now, it doesn't matter that interviews on the subject matter, polling done, surveys done indicate that that's not the case at all. In fact, the media finds themselves confounded. They'll do these little, Trump voters sit down and, well, how do you feel now about what Trump's doing? And Trump voters are like, yeah, this is what I voted for. Really? Yes. Were you not paying attention? Like the day I voted and I left the exit poll and you were asking me, why did you vote for Donald Trump? I told you these are the reasons. I told you because the economy and the border. And these are things that have, the border is completely sealed off. He's working on deporting those who are here illegally, and the economy is getting better. Why would I all of a sudden be unhappy with this is why I elected him. This evaluation by Wambach and, about, well, Trump voters and they're just, Trump is just a genius because he's only a genius if you are so detached from what is important to the average American that it takes you being a genius to figure it out. Trump isn't a genius. Now, he may be a genius when it comes to certain marketing stuff, when, for example, Joe Biden referred to Trump supporters as trash, and the decision to go ahead and arrive in a garbage truck. And even if that was someone else's idea, the fact that he's like, yeah, I like that. I do think that there's some brilliant decisions that are made, but overall, Trump, he just listens to people. It's not tricking people into supporting you when you listen to what people want and you say, oh, okay, elect me and I'll do that. That's just listening and paying attention. It's pretty basic stuff. On the flip side, you have the party that I'm sure she is supportive of that openly talks about the fact that, well, we're going to spend $20 million to try and figure out how to get men to support us. Like the left openly talks about the fact that they have to try and figure out how to, quote, get people on their team. The thing that she claims Trump is, that's the way he operates. It is also projection. It's projection to say, well, the people who vote for Trump, I mean, a lot of them, they don't even really know what's going on, at the grocery store or the gas pump or at the border. That stuff they don't know. They just think Trump is good, and that's all that matters. Which side is it? Which political party is it that constantly portrays the other one as bad, as evil, as immoral, as Hitler, as a dictator? This is complete and total projection. The left is the side that has even argued on The View, for example, during the election. Whoopi Goldberg said, you think you care about inflation? Well, you just wait till Trump gets in there and starts throwing you in prison. We need to get over this inflation stuff. Fully arguing. It doesn't matter what the policies do. It doesn't matter what Biden has done, what Kamala is going to do, because Trump is bad. So just be on our team. I don't believe any longer collectively people on the left even really truly care. Even the Democrat Party or the media actually genuinely want to know why people supported Trump. They may talk like it, but really what they want to know is, how can we make people believe that we're the good guys? I remember years ago, this was in a market, this wasn't here, and I had a call from an elected official asking if I would meet. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll have lunch. And just got right down to brass tacks and asked me, what do we have to do in order to get you to come over to our side? I was like, what do you mean your side? What are you talking about? It was kind of nonpartisan. It wasn't Democrat, Republican thing. Well, I mean, it's obvious you're on there. I said, it's not about being on sides. This is just about what's going on, what everybody's doing. Is this good? Is this bad? I mean, but in this person's mind and their side, that it was all about teams. That's all that mattered, teams. That's not what matters to some of us. I mean, it may matter, based off what each team is going to do, but that's ultimately what it comes down to. What's going to be done? What is it you stand for? What is it you believe? What policies are you going to put into place? And Trump listened to what people wanted, and he said, I'll do that. If you want to look at that as being a genius move, knock yourself out. Seems to me pretty straightforward. And I suspect Donald Trump thinks the same. Regarding this fantasy world that the left desperately wants to believe, Trump supporters, I bet they're really sorry. I mean, it is somewhat humorous. Oh, well, Kamala's going to win. Those people really believed it. They 100%. Apparently, Kamala and Tim Walz really thought they were going to win all those swing states. That's how delusional these people. It wasn't just sort of we need to put on a brave face. Apparently, they were actually really shocked that they did not win. They were shocked that having multi-million-dollar celebrities out there representing them, the Oprahs and the Beyoncés, that were taking millions of dollars from her as if they don't have enough money that was donated by people living paycheck to paycheck, that wasn't somehow a winning formula. They just couldn't believe it. And the left wants to believe, despite the fact that Trump secured the border, he is signing peace deals all over the place. The economy is getting better. Gas prices are at, like a 4-year low. They want to believe that Trump supporters are really upset at how things are playing out so far. And here is on Chuck Todd's show an establishment pollster by the name of Kristen Soltis Anderson talking about Trump and poll numbers.
The thing that has been the most surprising is someone like me 8 years ago was completely hair on fire. That Donald Trump is going to take everything that our party has been doing to try to win over young voters or voters of color, and he is lighting it all on fire, and it is going to be unrecoverable. And now, if I am a person that follows the data, you have to acknowledge that those are the very groups that he put his re-election, he built it on those groups, and it did better with Latino voters, better with younger voters than any Republican has in 20 years. And that's really remarkable.
But some will continue to tell themselves, oh, no. That's the opposite of what's happening. Trump supporters are just really, it's what is going on? This is the thing that I know it sounds like harping on how delusional people on the left are and how they create these little bubbles. I'm not saying they have to be happy with the results that Trump, but why on earth would you think Trump supporters are unhappy with the results? That's the thing that kills me, these people on the left. Like, I just really think that a lot of these Trump supporters are sorry. Based off of what? What results that just in the first 5 months do you believe run counter to why people voted for Donald Trump? And while I'm not here to claim that every single person who voted for Donald Trump is happy with absolutely every single outcome that has occurred, but even Democrats acknowledge there were two major issues, the border and the economy. And the border, again, within like 30 seconds, sealed off. After years of being told that, well, it's going to take congressional approval and that it's going to take all of this money you're going to have to give us in order to do it. Trump snapped his fingers, done, on sealing that border. Now, of course, working on trying to get the millions out that were let in. And then the economy is getting better, much better. And as we read through the Wall Street Journal piece earlier and the New York Post had a piece, everyone, all these economists that said, no, it's going to be awful, the tariffs are going to be, they're all saying, well, we were wrong. Trump was right. Stephen Moore on a number of occasions has said, hey, I'm one of the first to admit I was wrong about this. Trump was right. What about those things, the two main pillars of why people supported Donald Trump, the border and the economy, both of them markedly better by every matrix, yet you think Trump supporters are going to be like, yeah, I'm not really pleased with the way things are going so far. You're out of touch. You may not want an improved economy, and you may not want a secure border, but why you think that Trump supporters would be unhappy with that is a signal of willful delusion. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line. Nick, you said Trump has signed peace deals all over the place. Exactly where are those places? Why do you do that? What speak about factual information? I mean, that's what we do. We provide information. Well, of course, well, maybe you aren't aware, but people who pay attention to what's going on, there were the Abraham Accords, which, of course, were from the first administration, and these were deals between Israel and the UAE, Israel and Bahrain, Israel and Sudan, Israel and Morocco. Saudi Arabia is expected to sign on to a deal, as well as a number of other Middle Eastern countries, and some of that may, they say, be announced in the next couple of weeks. This past weekend, the foreign minister of Rwanda and the foreign minister of the People's Republic of Congo, 30 years of destroying one another, killing one another. And the two foreign ministers stood in the Oval Office with that peace agreement being signed. So that's some of what I'm talking about. I mean, this stuff is in the public. It's not hidden. You know, if you aren't aware of it, Trump loves to hold up those deals with his signature on them with the leaders of the different countries on either side, be it presidents, prime minister, foreign, ministers, as was the case with Rwanda and Congo. I mean, this stuff isn't secret. Now, if you are limiting yourself to CNN and MSNBC and Stephen Colbert, there's a good chance that you don't know some of this stuff is going on. It's also part of the reason that you thought Joe Biden was perfectly fine. Had no cognitive issues whatsoever. When you choose to only hear information you want to hear, and you choose to only get information from outlets that tell you what you want to hear, you miss out on a lot of stuff. Including, there have been half a dozen Nobel Peace Prize nominations for Donald Trump because of these peace deals. Again, it's not secret. News in 60 seconds. No plan is a bad plan. Ozarks elder law, if you do not plan for your ultimate demise, then you're leaving a mess behind for your family. You know, a lot of people, in order to make sure their family are not further burdened by their passing, they will ahead of time pay for a burial plot. Some people even pay in advance for whatever cost for the funeral itself, because they don't want to leave any burden behind, right? I mean, this is already a time that isn't fun. Nobody likes it, generally speaking, when a loved one passes on. And so they don't want those to be the days while mourning to have to deal with that stuff. But if you don't have a will in place, if you don't have all that stuff really, truly, securely nailed down, then you could leave a mess behind that is far beyond not paying for your funeral expenses. Government's going to get involved, and government's going to start calling the shots. And odds are, if you listen to a station like this, it's because, well, I shouldn't say it's because, but there's a good chance you aren't someone who fully trusts the government to make those sorts of decisions, and you feel that family should make those decisions. And unfortunately, because of how large government has gotten and as intrusive as it's gotten, the days of once upon a time where, well, this is my family, they just get it, right? Doesn't work that way any longer. Ozarks Elder Law, Lori Rook and the team, they can make sure that you are taken care of. Don't just download some sort of will and think that, because you got it off some official-looking site online, that's going to be good enough. It just doesn't work that way. And states vary from state to state. Missouri's one that's not going to fly. So you definitely need the help of Ozarks Elder Law. 10 area locations, and the consultation's free, and they'll let you know up front what the final costs are going to be. So it's not a billable hours situation with an open-ended cost to you. OzarksElderLaw.com. There was there are some people that will text in, and frankly, most of them eventually I just stop looking at them, or they get blocked because there's no meaningful exchange. But every once in a while, I think, well, that's out of ignorance, that comment. And maybe some people don't know, so this could be a moment of education. And I referenced all the different peace deals that Trump has been involved in and had signings of, and this person was ignorant as to any of those happening. And so I listed through a number of them. One I did forget to mention is also a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister of Pakistan nominated Trump for Nobel Peace Prize because he brought peace between those two nuclear nations, that being India and Pakistan, and they began a war. I mean, war was starting, and there were grave concerns about nuclear war breaking out till Trump got involved, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan nominated him for Nobel Peace Prize. Now, after the Iran bombing, he said, "Well, I withdraw that nomination," but the fact of the matter remains, that was yet another instance. Now, also, and this may be nitpicking, but it is important and interesting. The never Trump person who thinks that Trump colludes with Putin on everything. Well, I mean, Trump, he didn't actually sign anything. Okay. And yeah, he does, because this is one of the great things about deals like this. We're involved in them. That's part of the security that each of the other parties feel that bring them to the table. And usually it's investment, as was with Rwanda and the Republic of Congo. It was a signature regarding investments in mineral mines in those regions. And so, yes, there are signatures from Trump when it comes to these different peace deals. Again, information that if you limit yourself to late night comedians, internet memes, and MSNBC, you just probably don't know. Elon Musk is back on the campaign trail. He's, mad at Trump again. And he's more mad at the big beautiful bill, and he is probably, I think it's fair to say, hyper focused when it comes to anything spending in government, which makes sense. Elon Musk, the way that his mind works, it is 1 + 1 = 2, and it's just straight up obvious. When it comes to spending and savings and efficiency, his mind works in a way that most people don't, and it's just it's obvious. And so he knows the path that we're on. He knows that it's unsustainable. And he knows that the vast majority of the noise around the cuts, because he has seen the wasteful spending, he has seen the fraud, he has seen the redundancy, he has seen the fact that so many of these different institutions, they don't even have a, quote, ledger. They just write checks left and right. Nobody knows where the money's even coming from. It just goes and goes and goes. And that is not sustainable. And so for him, this is so clear cut. And you can imagine, and by the way, he's right. Trump, of course, is someone who, as a deal maker, as a businessman, I believe recognizes at what point you realize this is what we're going to get. Simply dwelling on wanting more, predicting it's not going to happen is just a waste of time. So once you get the pieces on the chessboard where it is that they're set and you know, okay, this is what we're going to get, then you want to close it. All right, let's close it. Let's do this deal. Is it the best deal? Is it a necessary deal in order to get us back on track economically? I would argue no. But I would also argue Trump believes that given the current makeup of the House and the Senate, with such slim majorities and enough establishment Republicans to be fiscally irresponsible along with the Democrats, he knows this is what it is. So let's close it and get it done. Well, Elon Musk, he's out there and now he's pledging that anyone who votes for this, he will get out and campaign against him, that he will fund opponents in order to get those individuals thrown out of office. He said every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, and they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Now, I don't know whether or not Elon Musk is going to have the, the long vision, the dedication to stick with this, and he may absolutely make this a mission of his. I think that it will be unsuccessful, even if whether I support it or not. What oftentimes happens, I believe, is you get some of these people in the Trump orbit who become, and they feel it, they sense it, that they have a lot of support, not realizing the reason that they have that support is because they are carrying out the mission of the President of the United States, specifically Donald Trump. And once they're out of that orbit, they don't have quite the clout they did once before. I suspect that if you think about it, if you have members of Congress that do what Donald Trump wants, and they support and vote for the big beautiful bill, and then Elon Musk decides because of that he is going to support, endorse, and finance some challenger based off of that. And if you have some sort of proxy fight between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, I think Donald Trump is going to win that, not to mention the incumbent. It is almost impossible, particularly in a primary, to unseat an incumbent. They have to do something pretty egregious for that to occur. And I don't, again, Elon Musk may do it. This may be something that he's just angry about now, and then he decides later, or he just completely forgets about it. But I don't think that really any Republican member of Congress that does end up voting for this probably needs to, in a real significant way, worry about Elon Musk supporting some sort of challenger. That doesn't mean that it couldn't work in certain instances. Maybe it could. I don't know. I just think Elon Musk may have a disproportionate or an inflated view of what power he would have in that particular position. I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Springfield's Talk 1041, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 89.
Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Summer is in full swing in the Ozarks, and there's nothing worse than when your AC goes out. If you're currently in that situation, I want to recommend Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. From a simple AC tune-up to more advanced service repairs to upgrades, the Foreman team, they do it all. They're not high pressure, and they don't use scare tactics on you to force you into a unit that you're not ready for. They're a great group of folks that focus on one thing, keeping you cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It's as simple as that. And the Foreman team, they also offer residential and commercial services, plus a 24/7 emergency line. So if your AC is not running up to speed, don't fret. Just schedule an appointment with Russell and his team today. Now you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's some great video of Kamala Harris's code talker for tough guys breaking out the happy hands as ground marshal of the Pride Parade up there in Minnesota. I mean, he does too. It's Red State has video of it, and I mean, he's just skipping along, and those hands are all waving in the air.
It's folksy.
Okay, just free advice here to the Democrat Party. You're trying to figure out how it is to relate to the average person, how it is to relate to men. This is not the way to do it.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Oh, it's great.
You
I
said
mean,
Red
he
State?
is. Yeah, Red State, and there's a video of it, and he's grand marshal of one of the Pride parades, and he's doing the, you know.
He's very.
Oh, he is very. He's really, really dancing around there with those hands. Yeah, that's not how you. Now, this is the guy who claimed the reason he was chosen is because he was the real man he was the manly man. He's like Jason Momoa, this guy, and he was going to relate to the average man in this country. No, well, which one? The Red State article?
Look, there's no reason to judge a person who loves to express excitement through their hands, but what are we looking at here?
Yeah. It goes on to say, it's kind of hard to believe that this is the same man Kamala Harris chose because he could, quote, code talk to white men who love to drive trucks and watch sports. Now, but let me tell you, I mean, we're laughing about this, but this really is part of the problem. So you explain, yeah, that's not how you win over guys. What is their response? Their response isn't, oh, okay, this is good information. Their response is, that's bigoted. That's homophobic. That's transphobic. Okay, call it what you want, but what do you want? You can't, this is such a problem for the Democrat Party. They, on one hand, claim that they want to relate to, for example, the average guy. But when you tell them here's how to do it and not to do it, they immediately, their reaction is that, well, that's wrong. We can't do that. That's bad. That's toxic. Because they don't like average people. They don't like what is important to average people. They don't relate to average people. And so on one hand, they say we want to know how to relate to them, but when you tell them, they recoil at it. Well, that's this or that's that. Okay, so what do you want? Do you want to know how? Or do you not want to know how? This is why I don't think that they'll ever be able to do it. Because they inherently cannot stand the values of the average person that they are trying to connect with. And if you can't stand that person, then you're not going to be able to genuinely connect with them. And by the way, it isn't the value of the issue itself. So, for example, because Tim Walz loves to jazz hand his way leading LGBTQ plus parades, that doesn't mean that the average white guy or average suburban mom in this country hates LGBTQ plus people. See, that's the way that the left views it, because they refuse to understand normal people. It's just normal people aren't really about having it in your face. Normal people are like, hey, you do your thing, that's fine. But, if you're going to jump around and jazz hands all over the place and, yeah, there is a human reaction to that while some people may love that, some people may see that and get excited, that is not the reaction of a majority of people. It's just the truth. And one of the weaknesses that the Democrat Party has is just if they don't like the answer, they just ignore it. Or they say, well, that's wrong, so we're not going to do that. Okay, but then don't act confused when you can't connect with these people. I mean, it's like, I really want to connect with, vegetarians and people who believe that animals should have equal rights. And then I'm constantly going out there and I'm hunting and I'm dragging animal carcasses in front of the cameras and bragging about it. That I just have to accept that as long as that's who I am and that's what I'm doing, I'm not going to win over the people who believe that animals should not be owned and that they should be able to vote and that you shouldn't eat them because they are on the same level as human beings. I have to make a decision there. And it's the same thing with the Democrat Party. And I don't know if at what point they're going to make the decision when it comes to average men. Now you may think, well, they'll never write them off completely, and that may be true. But who would have thought they'd write off Jews? I mean, talk about an incompatible scenario in which on one hand they want a constituency that wants to finish what Hitler started, but then on the other hand, for a period of time, they tried to balance it. And I mean, some still are trying to do it, but it's just becoming increasingly clear that, I mean, they're choosing those who want to eliminate the Jews over the Jews. And, that's, again, you cannot satisfy both constituencies. But you can continue to try, continue to lose, and then continue to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on consultants to help you better connect with the people that you continue to alienate. I'm an information guy. It's one of the reasons that I talked to you about Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She's an information gal. And a lot of realtors, and I've got friends that are realtors, and they utilize their social media in order to show new listings. And a lot of times very polished, very, it's great, professional. Emily Johnson has, I don't know if holistic is a good term to use, but just a broader usage of her social media, and she had done a posting recently about storm shelters and whether or not that adds to the value of your home when it comes to selling it. And that's a great question. I know when we had a storm shelter put in our home, that was something that I probably assumed like, oh, well, this will help the value. And what she noted in her Facebook posting is that that's not really necessarily the case, but it can potentially help you sell it. So while you're not going to be able to increase the overall value of what you sell your home for, if somebody is deciding between your home and this other home, and boy, I really like both of them, the storm shelter could be the thing that they're like, you know what, especially as of late with all the storms. I mean, even though we have them all the time, it just seems like lately they're a little more pronounced. But it can be the sort of thing that actually helps you sell the home. And sometimes those are two separate things. Some things are going to bring you increased value, and some are going to make your house just more attractive to a potential buyer. But that's one of the reasons that, again, I like not just following Emily Johnson on social media, but just her overall approach. It's not simply about, oh, here's the listing, here's how much it is. It's a great home, perfect for a family of four, but all sorts of additional information that can help you just not as a buyer, but also as a seller. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see clouds in the morning and then sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 65. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 87. And looking ahead to Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 89.
The pilots who flew into Iran on the mission bombing the Iranian nuclear facilities, they are slated to be at the White House on Independence Day.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So immediately the media can begin trying to figure out why they're bad. You know, get in their social media, see if they've said anything racist or whatever. Figure out something.
They were really defending that female pilot, so we'll see if they turn on her.
It's like of all the things.
I know.
So, yeah, Hegseth, for those that missed it, he was bragging on them at a press conference. And you know, the evidently boys and bombers, this is sort of a term that's used. And so a reporter's like, why are you ignoring the female? And he's just like, oh, my God. I mean, yeah, okay. And I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't deserve recognition. I think that is totally awesome. But it's like, yes, that's what he was doing. He's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver. If Pete Hegseth, what the implication here is, well, clearly he's misogynistic. Why would he even allow a woman to be part of the mission to begin with? I mean, this idea we're supposed to believe that he's a misogynist and he just doesn't think much of women. Well, he probably would not have allowed her to be part of the mission to begin with if that were the case. It's just, you know what would have been even perfect? Because he said the boys and the bombers, so she said, well, why didn't you recognize the female? Now, if we're going to keep things all equal, he would not say female, he would say girl, right? Because boy isn't boy and girl, that's on the same level. But I've learned that the left doesn't like when you refer to a woman as a girl. That is like demeaning. In
Good
fact,
point.
there are people who say that Supergirl is demeaning because, well, it's Superman. Why isn't it Superwoman? It's like, oh, for Jiminy Christmas. So, yeah, Pete Hegseth, he could have made the point of calling her a girl just to get him riled up. And then when they're like, why do you say girl, not a woman? Well, because I say boy. And apparently we wanted this to be equal. So anyway, they're going to be there. This alligator Alcatraz thing, I am just loving it. And it is vintage Trump. And it is so classic because this is one, sort of like, it's to a degree to me, my assessment here, similar to the Gulf of America in that it's something that immediately riles up the left, but they can't necessarily say why they don't like it. And it riles them up for a couple reasons. One, because Trump did it, but also it sort of like ruffles their politically correct feathers, which oftentimes are not based in reality anyhow. And I just loved the whole Gulf of America thing because, again, the left just pitched a fit over it. But then if you ask them, well, what's the real problem here? Really, there never was a solid answer. Well, because he shouldn't be changing things. Presidents change things all the time. They change the name of landmarks. They change the names of mountains. I mean, this isn't anything new. Well, because, it borders Mexico. The majority of it bordered the United States of America. So if we want to be accurate, really, he could have gone as far as saying the Gulf of the USA. But instead, Gulf of America. And guess what Mexico is part of? North America. So in reality, it actually is the most accurate description. So when it came to the Gulf of America, Trump did not do anything that past presidents don't do all the time, and he took the labeling of a body of water and made it more geographically accurate in its term. So, okay, now what? Well, I just don't like it. It's racist. Oh, okay, whatever that means. The alligator Alcatraz. Now, this is a detention center for people who are in this country illegally, and unfortunately, because of the 20 million plus illegals that the Biden administration welcomed into this country and released into this country, we need some additional facilities to house them when they're caught. We have a real limitation when it comes to real estate, and so this has to happen to accommodate the problem created by the Biden administration. So we got alligator Alcatraz. We'll plop this down in Florida, right? Mm-hmm. And it's out in swampy area. And frankly, I don't know, honestly, that it wasn't something that DeSantis is like, hey, yeah, you can put it down here in Florida. We got a lot of unused swamp land. It can be built there. This isn't exactly real estate that people in the private sector are looking to build condos on. And so it's a great place to build a facility like that. And then, hey, bonus, it's filled with alligators. Hey, that's kind of a fun shtick. Well, what I love about it is it just drives the left nuts. And I don't think they even know why. I mean, what is, like, if you really think about it, what is so wrong with it? Well, because the that's just me. It's not like they're going to be swimming with the alligators. They are going to be inside the building. They are going to be, just as safe as going to the Dickerson Park Zoo and checking out the wildlife there. There's going to be a separation. They aren't going to be running obstacle courses, again, unless, of course, they try to escape. This is, it's just one of those irrational reactions from the left that I think Trump does partially for his own entertainment. It's something that needs to be done because, again, we have to have increased number of facilities because of the previous administration, and it's in an area that imagine it just makes sense for a number of different reasons. And particularly, when it comes to people trying to escape, running across the desert or some field in Kansas is a lot different than the prospect of trying to run waist deep through water that's infested with giant snakes and alligators. That is quite the deterrent. So it kind of seems like a natural deterrent that makes a lot of sense. So why again do we hate it? Well, Trump did it. Oh, and I'm sure they'll throw in the environment and like, okay, like what about the environment? Well, just, the environment. Okay. Are there any other reasons I'm unaware of that the left is upset by this, that they're giving?
Well, I want to show you something really funny well, actually, pull up Google really quick for me.
Okay.
Because you have got to see this. No, on your desktop.
On the desktop, okay.
Because it's worth it. And I'll put it in the must-read headlines, too.
Okay.
So it's got to be Google.
Has to be Google. All right.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
And then just type in alligator Alcatraz. Now, whenever you do this, it will actually populate where it is at. And
so like location, go down to that. Do I choose that?
Nope, just type in alligator Alcatraz.
Okay, got that chosen.
Okay, so it will show you the cover photo for alligator Alcatraz. Do you see it yet?
Now, well, I see some. I don't know if these are do I need to click on it?
Well, yeah, just type it in.
Oh,
and
okay.
then search. Look at the cover photo.
Oh, the protesters?
No. Over to the right.
For
those of you who cannot see, which is all of
really
you,
funny.
it is
funny.
Alligators with ice hats on.
That is funny.
Yeah,
they're all lined up. They're all lined up. That's really great. Let's see. Yeah, so Trump is going to be in attendance. Watch live. Trump participates in roundtable from Alligator Alcatraz. Is there already some infrastructure there?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I have not really paid a lot of attention to the details of this, just the fact that it is happening and the amount of attention it's getting because of the reaction from the left. What are some of these protesters I saw holding up signs? Swamps, not cells.
Somebody has no ice in paradise.
Keep the land sacred. Defend the Everglades. Okay, so, all right. Whatever. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. There are protesters, I guess, lining the highway to Alligator Alcatraz. This, again, the things that these people spend time on, and, the whole No Kings rally, the left has really mastered the art of taking minimal action, telling themselves that they're doing something meaningful, yet nothing meaningful is actually done. Well, we let people know how we feel. Oh, we know. We just don't care. The only people who care are the same people who show up. So you're in an echo chamber. I mean, you're allowed to do whatever you want, but what a waste of time. It's a total waste of time. The amount of time that you may spend at one of these, like, oh, I saw 6 hours. Spent 6 hours. Oh, we were out there for 6 hours. Have you ever spent 6 hours doing something meaningful to help other people? I'm not talking about posting things online or holding a sign and hollering at traffic. I mean, something that really helps humanity. I suspect that 95% of the people that show up at these protests that do absolutely nothing whatsoever other than help destroy the forest because you're using cardboard and using markers to fill out your cardboard signs. And these, of course, markers, you're talking about plastics, which, of course, the plastics are filled with oil. So, like, you're actually helping all of these industries that are destroying the environment, which is hilarious because a lot of these alligator Alcatraz protesters are there in the name of the environment. So they all drive there in vehicles that's belching pollution. They're buying, again, cardboard signs, that require trees to be cut down. They're using markers in order to fill them out, which requires the oil industry. So all they're doing is helping all of these industries that they claim destroy the environment, and that's all. Oh, and they got on the news. The vast majority of these events that occur are a demonstration of people who really do not think things through. They don't think them through at all. What's your goal? Well, it's just to really let people know how I feel. Oh, like you don't do that every day on the internet? Like you don't every day on social media go on and on about the exact same thing over and over and over again to the point that people hit snooze for 30 days? Other than people who just believe the exact same thing and come to you as an echo chamber because they want to be validated about their obsession as well? Meanwhile, now you think about the things that some of these people protest. On the flip side, you have this app that was created called Ice Block, and it tracks the location of ICE agents, asking its users to pinpoint where ICE agents are. Sort of like Waze. If you have Waze and people can report where law enforcement is so that you slow down and you're not speeding when you get to where law enforcement is, highway patrol, whatever. Now, of course, the real-life implications of this involve the fact that there are people who want to murder these very people. Now, there's two components to this. One, it is the effort to help people who are in this country illegally, some of which are child rapists and, Maryland dads. It is to help them avoid law enforcement. It is to help them avoid being held accountable for the laws that they've broken. But the other part of it that doesn't get talked about by them, by the way, CNN's promoting that. They got these big stories, making sure everybody knows about this app, see? This is an industry. And human traffickers and drug cartels are the ones who run these industries. So as you can imagine, they don't love the fact that these ICE agents are out there disrupting their industry. This is like the only economy that the left apparently, in a meaningful way, is beneficial to. And that is the human trafficking and drug cartels. That's the one economy that they do what they can in order to get as many regulations out of the way as possible. And so much like, I don't know what the left thinks happens. What do you think these human traffickers and drug cartels do to people that they recognize are getting in their way? Even if you don't follow the news, particularly in some of these countries, like, South American countries, they kill them. They oftentimes torture their family members, including their children, to send a message to others. You have Democrats that are trying to pass legislation forcing members of ICE to not have their faces covered so the drug cartels can see who they are. You have CNN out there promoting an app that tells the drug cartels where ICE members are. There's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE members. And somehow this is apparently perfectly acceptable. The White House addressed this. Tom Homan addressed this yesterday. That audio coming up next. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company storms swept through the Ozarks over the weekend, and if you experienced roof damage, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections and guide you through the entire insurance process, from questions like, hey, should I remove this tree limb myself? Should I wait for insurance? To do you think this item will be covered? They are with you every step of the way, and they really do want the best solution for you and your roof. And sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof, but maybe just a simple roof repair. Either way, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they will make the roofing process as simple and as possible for you. So if it's time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, schedule that free roof inspection with Josh and his team today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
CNN, through their coverage, promoting an app that reveals the identity, or it reveals where it is that ICE agents are. At the same time, Democrats are trying to pass legislation that forces ICE agents to reveal their identity, allowing the drug cartels and human traffickers to know who they are so they can track them down, of course, where they live. This is what they do in other countries. This is, by the way, part of the reason so many illegals flee those countries to come here. And now you have the left trying to turn this country into the nightmare that many of those people fled. The White House yesterday, Levitt responding to a question regarding this CNN story.
I just watched a CNN segment on a new app called Ice Block, and it kind of appeared to be promoting this app where you can tell people where ICE agents are. Given the recent rise,
an app that tells people where ICE agents are.
And given the rise, I believe 500% increase in assaults on ICE agents, I wanted to see if you could comment on that and why CNN would be promoting such an app.
Well, it's a very good question. I'll have to go back and watch the clip myself, but surely it sounds like this would be an incitement of further violence against our ICE officers. As you know, as you stated, there's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE agents, law enforcement officers across the country who are just simply trying to do their jobs and remove public safety threats from our communities. And that's something we as Americans, including journalists at CNN who live in many of these cities where illegal aliens are hiding and were let in from the previous administration, should be very grateful for. So we haven't seen the clip. We'll take a look at it, but certainly it's unacceptable that a major network would promote such an app that is encouraging violence against law enforcement officers who are trying to keep our country safe.
So I'm hoping DOJ steps in there and see if they cross that line of impeding federal law enforcement officers. Look, Lawrence, you and I talk about this. Assault against ICE is up over 500%. Now you got an app that's going to tell where ICE operators are going to be. It's only a matter of time before ICE agents are ambushed by some nut, like what happened in LA, throwing a Molotov cocktail, throwing bricks at these officers. This is just disgusting at every level. So I hope DOJ dives in this deeply, because ICE is concentrating on public safety threats and national security threats. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. This shouldn't be an issue anybody is against. So they're already a dangerous job going after the worst of the worst. These guys are putting their lives on the line every day going after the worst and worst international security threat. And this app makes it that much more dangerous. It's incredible that those who enforce law, all of a sudden they're the bad guys. When they break the law, they're victims. It's disgusting. Well.
And then the acting ICE director revealing that left-wing activists are posting on social media photos of ICE agents along with their family members, including their underage children. This is what the left is doing. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.